Hi guys, and welcome back to Mini Urban Farm. Today I am going to be sharing with you what I am planting and all the vegetables I am growing and the herbs I'm growing for 2021 spring. So let me go find a comfortable place in the garden to sit down and I will share with you what is in my seed box. Alright, so I am going to be sharing with you what is in my seed starting box. This is my little seed box. It is just one of those little boxes that you get at, I think I got this at TJ Maxx, you can get them at the craft store. This is where I keep all my seeds. And inside, you can see, it has all of my garden seeds, things that I've saved from the garden in previous seasons, things that I've ordered, extra seeds from last season, all of the good stuff. Milo wants to say hi to the camera as well, he keeps crying, so. Alright, so I am going to run through all the things that I got for this year's garden. I am in zone 9B. It is going to be planting time very soon here. It is currently the beginning of January and I'm going to be starting my seeds within the next 2 weeks or so, God willing, and then planting them out into the garden, transplanting everything and direct sowing everything that needs to be direct sowed into the garden at the end of February. So hopefully it will warm up and we'll be able to get all those fruits and vegetables out. But for right now, I'm just going to show you what I'm going to be planting that I am very, very excited about. Just as a side note, and I did cover this on one of my previous videos, but just as a reminder, if you are planting anything in your garden, make sure it is something that you're actually going to be eating. Last season I planted out radishes and I was pretty much the only person eating radishes, the hundreds of radishes that we planted, and so I ended up giving away a lot of them because my boyfriend Alan does not like radishes at all and nobody else that I know really likes radishes. So just make sure that it is something that you enjoy eating. Now I'll get off my soapbox and show you what I'm planting. Alright, so the first things that I'm growing in my garden that I want to share with you are my herbs. I plant parsley every single year. I plant the giant Italian parsley, which right there, but that's what it looks like. It's just a flat leaf parsley. It's very good for cooking, has a great flavor. And then I also plant the curled parsley. This is a special type. It's called moss curled parsley, and I used it a lot in eggs this season. Well, this season passed, and I thought it was such a great addition, so I will be planting both types of parsley. I think they're really great to always have in your garden. The next thing is my Genovese basil. Now, I originally had a packet of seeds. This was what was left on the plant of the few plants I had. I saved all these seeds, which was a very time-consuming experience, but it was the first time saving basil seeds, and that was such a rewarding thing that now I have all of these seeds. It's probably a good 100 seeds in here, so they're very tiny, and now I'll be able to plant those out into my herb garden as well. I am also planting thyme, both lemon thyme and German thyme. If you've never tried lemon thyme, it has a very lemony flavor. I think it's really great, especially in eggs, and I really like cooking with lemon thyme. And of course, thyme for tomato sauces and pasta and that sort of thing. So thyme grows in my garden right now. Both types of thyme grow in my garden, as well as rosemary. So those plants will just stay here for the time being. They're already in pots, they're still growing strong, even though it's been really cold outside lately, well, around 40s, mid 40s or so. They seem to be doing quite well, so unless they die out, I am not going to put them in compost. As long as they're growing strong, they will stay exactly where they are and just continue to do well in the garden. Alright, so my next thing that I'm growing is tomatoes. This is probably my favorite thing to grow. I love growing tomatoes. It was the very first thing that I ever grew as a kid, and it just stuck with me, the love of growing tomatoes. So I'm currently growing 3 varieties of tomatoes, which are these ones behind me. They will be ripped out because they are starting to wither away and die. This one back here specifically, one of the plants already died, and they're still producing, so I feel bad just ripping them out since they are still producing some tomatoes, but they will be coming out so that I can make way for my new varieties of tomatoes, or rather the ones that I'm planting again this year. So the first variety of tomatoes I'm planting are grape tomatoes. They look like this. I don't know, yeah, if you can see that, but these are ones that I've had for a very long time. I plant these every year. I really like these. the flavor is amazing, and even more so when you plant them in your own garden. So not these specific tomatoes, but this variety of tomato, a few years ago I was in the supermarket and I got tomatoes. At the time, I think it was like between seasons, or I was moving or something like that, and I did not have a garden. So I got tomatoes and I took the seeds out of those tomatoes and I planted them in the garden, and then I saved those tomatoes and I planted those tomatoes that had grown into my next year's garden. And then every single year after that, I just take these tomatoes, I cut them in half, and I plant them directly in. I don't save seeds from tomatoes just because I'm still growing tomatoes now, and then in another few weeks it's time to restart tomatoes. So I just always plant the fresh tomato seeds directly out of the tomato. That's always the way I've done it. You can of course buy tomato seeds, or you can even go to the organic section of the supermarket and buy tomatoes and plant them just like that. I definitely would recommend, if you're not planning on buying seeds, grow something from the supermarket. It grows just fine the majority of the times. This specific tomato is a grape tomato and has just grown the exact same way for multiple seasons, so I always like that one. The next variety of tomato that I will be growing is my Roma tomato. It is folded over a little bit, but you can see it right there. I'll insert a picture of it if you're not familiar with what it actually looks like. I have harvested about 10 or 15 pounds of Roma tomatoes so far in the season, and there are still so many on the plant, and we're currently at the end of the season, so I'm waiting for those to ripen so that I can rip out this plant. This is actually the very first type of plant tomato anything. This is the first thing that I ever grew, was Roma tomatoes from the supermarket, and since then I've started from seeds. I still have seeds left over, so I will probably just use up these seeds instead of just keeping them in the box. But I also have about 10 or 15 tomatoes still on my kitchen countertop, so you can also just plant the actual Roma tomato. That is the second type of tomato I will be growing, and they are great for paste. I have made so much homemade sauce out of them this season, and I will just probably always grow them. It's just one of my favorite types. Alright, so my next variety of tomato is the orange peach tomato. It looks like that. It's supposed to be a little fuzzy on the outside, it says, and it tastes very peachy. Now, I've never tried growing these types of tomatoes before, but for the past couple years I have grown my Roma and my grape tomatoes, and then I always put in one experimental variety. This season past I have grown black cherry tomatoes, which grew really interestingly. I really like the color. They're very pretty. They are much sweeter than I am normally accustomed to a tomato being, so I don't think I'll be growing those again, at least not this season. I am replacing them with my orange peach tomato, and I'm very excited for that because they just look so pretty and they caught my attention, and I'm very excited to grow these as well. They are an indeterminate tomato, which means that they do produce vines, so they're not a bush tomato. They will be growing up on the trellises here, and I'll be trellising up the one side and then up the other side, and they will come together in the middle, and then probably extend all the way back down the other sides. So these I'm really, really excited for. Alright, so the next crop that I will be growing is cucumbers. I am not growing any ordinary type of cucumber though. This year I am growing the cucumber Mexican sour gherkins. I don't think that you can see that. Oh, there you go. Mexican sour gherkins, and if you're not familiar with these, they are tiny little watermelon looking tomatoes. They are tiny little things. They're called mouse melons sometimes. I'll try to put a picture of it on the screen so you can see what I'm talking about, but they also grow on a trellis just like cucumbers do and produce yellow flowers, which I think are so adorable, and are great for pickling and eating in little salads, and they have somewhat of a lemony taste. I'm very excited to grow these because I've never grown them before, and it's just going to be really cute to harvest baskets, hopefully. Baskets of little tiny baby lemon looking or lemon tasting and watermelon looking tomatoes. I think that is so awesome, so I'm just really excited for these. Alright, so the only type of pepper I'm growing this season is going to be the Lesia, I think is how you say that, Lesia peppers. Oh, and just as a side note, all of these with the black tops like this and the white writing are from Baker Creek. I have gotten Baker Creek seeds for the last few seasons, and I really like them. They have a really great germination rate. The ones in the white, like this bag, are from Burpee. I generally order from Burpee online, and Baker Creek online. I think that Baker Creek just has a more interesting selection. In my opinion, Burpee has had just more of like a steady, staple crops, things that you're used to growing, whereas Baker Creek, they have like new and exciting things from all over the world, and it's just interesting to see what's on there and what type of plants you can grow from them. So I'll be growing the Lesia peppers. It's supposed to be a very juicy type of pepper. I have tried to grow pepper so many times in the past for so many seasons, mostly bell peppers or the little sweet peppers. I have not had much success with peppers. I've only been able to get a handful of peppers off of each plant. So hopefully this year I'm really looking forward to growing peppers and hopefully finally getting a pepper crop to actually use in the kitchen. So we'll see how it goes. I will keep you informed, but they are just so pretty with that dark red color, and they're kind of like black on the sides. So I just think that they're really cool looking, and they're supposed to be very sweet. So let's see. Alright, another thing that I'm growing, and this is kind of like 2-in-1, it's not the same thing, but it is zucchini and yellow squash. These are also from Baker Creek. They have a different packaging though. I'm not really sure why, but this is zucchini black beauty, and then the early prolific straight neck yellow squash. So those are the ones that I'll be growing. I have grown zucchini in the past, and I really like growing zucchini. It is very productive. The one thing that I have learned is to give it a ton of space because it does tend to come out of the raised beds and just overrun the whole garden. So I will be giving a lot of space to zucchini this season, and then the same thing with yellow squash. They're just such great additions to a summer dinner. They're great on the barbecue, they're great baked or roasted or anything. It's just such an amazing crop that I always like to have, and it's just such a healthy thing to grow. Okay, so next up are my beans. I grow beans every season. In the past, I've had trouble with bush beans, so I've mostly stuck to beans that you grow on a trellis, which are pole beans. I really like growing pole beans. This past season, I grew Old Homestead green beans, which were really great. They were really productive. They were very stringy, so I got requests from the boyfriend to grow things that were less stringy, and I must admit it was a little bit difficult to eat them, but they had a great flavor, and I really liked growing them. During the peak season, in the middle of fall or so, I was actually harvesting up to 3 times a week, like a good bushel of beans for a dinner of 4 people, which is a lot. I mean, these beans were growing like crazy. I did plant, I think about 30 plants, which sounds like a lot if you've never grown beans, but if you have grown beans before, you know that beans are very thin plants, and they grow kind of like the stalk, and then 1 or 2 leaves, and then another stalk, and then 1 or 2 leaves, and they're just very, very thin. So you trellis them up, and I grew them kind of in the middle of the raised beds. This year I will be growing my trellising pole beans up the sides of the raised beds, and just like the tomatoes, up and across and then back down. And I'll also be growing bush beans this year. So my pole beans will be my Marble of Venice from Baker Creek. These are supposed to be a more waxy type bean, like a yellow wax bean. I really like butter beans and wax beans and things of that sort, so I'm really excited to grow these. They're kind of like the same ones that I grew last season, except that they're yellow and they're of course a wax bean. So I'm really excited to try these ones. And then my green bean, which I always grow a variety of green beans, I will be growing the Jade bush bean. You can see that. And they are just such a great addition. I think I have had these before. I've never grown them, but I have a friend who grew them, and I really like them. So they do not have any strings in them, which is different from the one that I grew last season. So I'm very excited for these ones. I hope that they produce, well, I hope that everything in the garden produces very well, but I'm really excited for these specifically to produce, because I do tend to freeze all my beans, my green beans, and put them in the freezer. And I have been able to stock my freezer this season with a whole bunch of green beans. So I'm looking forward to those. On a side note, I also participated in a seed swap this past season, and I got out of that seed swap a whole bunch of other types of beans, and I will be filtering through those and seeing which ones to incorporate in the garden. So I will talk about those at the end of the video, but we'll just keep going for now. Alright, as far as salad goes for this season, I'm in Florida, Zone 9B, Central Florida, and it gets hot here. And when I say hot, I mean like 110 degrees, 100 degrees in summer. It is just extraordinarily hot, and a lot of things will not grow in the middle of that kind of heat as far as salad greens go. So lettuces, spinach that I usually grow, my mustard greens, which I love and I have a ton of in the garden right now. You can see Milo playing back there. He's been running around. You haven't been able to see it, but he's been running around the entire side yard, just going crazy this whole time. As far as salad goes, though, I am going to be planting arugula and my Swiss chard, and I will insert clips of that right here also. But my arugula and my Swiss chard have always just been a staple in the garden. I grow them year round. I will be re-sowing them and replanting them, but arugula, I love harvesting baby arugula greens for breakfast, adding them to salads especially. Just anything really, in my opinion, can be complemented by arugula. As far as Swiss chard goes, I mostly just use it in the salads that I grow for the dinner table, but I know that you can also saute it and you can eat the stems. Generally, the stems and stuff go in compost because I don't particularly like the taste of it, but I like the actual leaves for salads. So I will be growing these. Both of these do okay in the heat. You can find a lot of heat resistant varieties of lettuces and of other salad greens, but I've just always stuck with these, and then in the fall and winter I'll grow more of the other types of salad greens. That's always just the way I've done it, and I'll just make room for other actual vegetables that aren't salad in the spring and summer. This one is actually one that I'm really excited for now, which is okra. This is a Jing orange okra from Baker Creek. There you go, now you can see it. And it looks like this. It is like this fiery orange red color. And I love okra. I have never grown okra before, so it's something that I'm very excited about. I heard that it is very heat resistant, which is why I started looking into getting it for this season. Hopefully it does well and produces a lot. This one in particular is supposed to be really productive. And this is actually on the cover of the Baker Creek catalog. So I saw it on the cover of the catalog and I went and ordered it the exact same day because I knew that this would be sold out. And lo and behold, I looked again a couple days later and it was completely gone. So I will be growing this season, and I'm really excited for that because I love okra. I love cooking with okra. I love buying frozen okra. And my grandmother actually uses a lot of okra in cooking, especially in summer. We are Cuban and of Cuban descent, and so we make kimbombo, which is like an okra stew kind of thing, and I really like it. Fried okra, anything really with okra. So I am super excited to grow okra this season, and especially this ultra pretty variety of okra that you can see. It is just freaking gorgeous. All right, another thing that I'm excited for, and I feel like I say I'm excited for all of these, but I'm especially excited to grow eggplant. And I have grown eggplant in the past. I have grown Black Beauty eggplant. I have grown it from seed, and I've grown it from nursery starts at Home Depot. I just picked up a few of them. I did not know how they grow at the time, but apparently they grow in like a tree-like fashion, right? So it's like branchy. It's still a plant, but I planted in my raised bed, so it can be done. I did get quite a few eggplants off of that plant, but it does get quite large, and I did have to trellis it onto the back of the bed. So I will be growing little finger okra from Baker Creek, and they are just so cute. I mean, they're supposed to be like a whole bunch of them on, you know, the little fingers, I guess. So they are, in my opinion, they're just really cute. We're looking for a variety of eggplants to grow, and you know, this is the one we settled on. So I'm excited to just see how it grows and if it's similar to the ones I've grown before. As a side note, also, eggplant produces all of these little purple flowers. They do have thorns though, so that's one thing. If you are growing eggplant, just be careful because the bottom part of the flower has like little spiky thorns coming out of it, but I really like growing them. The flowers are so pretty. They are purple flowers with little yellow, I don't know what they're called, but the little fuzzy things inside of the flower are bright yellow, so I really just like those. But yeah, really excited to grow eggplant again this year. Next up is loofah. So this is a gourd. It's called loofah. Dishcloth loofah, I guess. But yeah, I've never grown this before. I've seen a whole bunch of people on Instagram grow this, and I just thought it was so interesting. You can actually eat this, but that is probably not what I'll be doing with it. I will be growing it to use as washcloth, right? You can, you've probably seen it in TJ Maxx or in the store or something like that. I reference TJ Maxx because that's where I go all the time. But I always see it in the store, and it's like a little sponge. You can use it for dishes. You can use it to exfoliate your body. I just think it's such an interesting plant. You can also eat it. You can eat the little ones before they dry out like this. This is the dried out version of it. But when it's actually on the plant and they're growing little, you can pick them and eat them, and they're supposed to taste like cucumbers. I've never had them before like that, but I will be growing this specifically to dry it out and use it as a washcloth. So I'm really excited to see how these grow. Like I said, I've seen a whole bunch of people grow it, so I guess we'll see what happens. Another thing that I always grow every single season are scallions. My scallions lasted all throughout fall and winter. They last all throughout summer. About once a year or so, I rip out all my scallions and I replant them, just because they start to get like stringy and they don't grow as well as when you originally plant them. I have never started scallions from seeds, and I don't plan on starting scallions from seeds this year. Every single year, what I do is I go into the organic section at the supermarket and I get scallions. They're usually like 3 bundles for $1 or something like that. So for me at least, it doesn't make sense to start them from seed and wait all of that time when I can just get the organic ones from the supermarket. And they have the roots. Make sure you have the little white bulb with the little root system on them already, and then you just plant them in the garden and then they keep growing. You cut them and they continue to produce and keep growing over and over again. So you can actually grow scallions in water, which is the first way that I grew scallions. The very first time I ever grew scallions, I took scallions from the supermarket and I put them in water. You cut them and they continue to grow. Eventually, they do need some sort of nutrients, so eventually they will start to die out. But if you keep changing the water on them, they will last a pretty long time, actually. So you can grow scallions like that. They will grow just like normal if you plant them. I plant them in my raised beds, but I have also planted them in containers before. This year, I think I might need some extra space in my raised beds for all of the seeds that I got from the seed swap I participated in. So those scallions might end up in a few pots around the garden instead of my raised beds, but we shall see. If you've never grown scallions, I would definitely encourage you to grow scallions. It's such a great small space vegetable to grow. It's such a great crop to grow because if you don't have the space to dedicate to planting onions for several months, or garlic or things like that, you can grow scallions instead. We still use onions, but I use scallions for a lot of things, especially in salads, and even in some like other dishes where I would have otherwise used onions. And then you can grow chives also. They taste like onions, very similar. Or you can grow garlic chives in place of garlic. So that's just something to consider. I generally don't grow garlic chives, but I always grow scallions. Alright, and then the last thing that I planned on growing this season and will be trying for one of my first times are poppy seeds. I don't know if you can see that, but these are cream peony poppy seeds, and they are very pretty. They're like a white cream color, and I will be growing poppies, hopefully to harvest some of the poppy seeds, which I really like on pretty much everything, but also because they're pretty. Like, I would like to be able to grow flowers. I grow a lot of vegetables, I grow a lot of herbs. I have never really grown flowers. The only flowers I've ever really been successful at growing are the garden flowers from like Home Depot that you bring home and you put in a pot. Those were marigolds, and they died and then they come back and then they die again and come back. So those are really the only flowers I've grown. I've never grown flower from seeds. Last season I planted some petunias, I think they were, and they didn't do so well. They're still in the raised beds. I planted them into the raised beds really late because it seemed like they weren't growing. When I put them in the raised beds, they did a little bit better. I don't think I'll be ripping them out when I take out everything else from the raised beds and rearrange everything. I think I might just plant around them because they are starting to grow a little bit. So I want to see if those flowers maybe do produce some actual flowers and not just the leaves. But these ones I'm very excited for. I'm definitely looking forward to growing these starting this season. Alright, so I did get quite a few packets of seeds from the seed swap I participated in, which was the Whispering Willows seed swap, which I thought was amazing. So I'm really happy to have participated in that. I did get back quite a few seeds that I've never heard of before, or I've never heard the variety before. So I got things like pink potted beans, which are interesting, and the packaging is so cute. I wish I knew who these came from. You can hear Milo barking in the background. But I wish I knew who these came from because the packaging is adorable. But I'm looking to grow the pink potted beans. I've never grown them before, and I guess we'll see. I will try to make space for these in the garden. I think I pretty much have everything mapped out, and I'm not sure if I'm going to have enough space to grow everything that I got in the seed swap, but I'm going to try because these sound really cute. Another one is the Cherokee wax beans that I got, and these are from Renee's Fix on Instagram, which I am very excited for. I have seen these, I've never grown them, but I really like wax beans, so I will definitely be trying to grow these this season. Another one that I'm really excited for is safflower. I have wanted to grow saffron for a very long time. The bulbs are very expensive, and they're usually out of stock. When I went to order them this time around, they were already out of stock. So this is supposed to be somewhat like that, like saffron. So I guess we'll see how this goes, but I'm looking forward a lot to growing this flower this time. And then another one that I am looking forward to that has such a cute packaging, from TL Grady, is zebra pole beans. So you can see right there. These ones are supposed to be really cute. They're like striped, they're kind of like stripy looking. I don't know if I'm gonna have room for all of these beans, but I am going to try to make space because I love growing beans and they're such a great crop to grow. And then the last one that I have not decided on yet, and I got several other varieties of crops that I just don't have the space for, so they will not be making it into the garden, but I will be keeping them for future garden spaces. The last one is the Honey Rock Melon, Baker Creek seeds. They don't have a name on them for whoever sent them in. Thank you so much. I don't know if I'll have space to grow this. I don't know that I'll be able to grow melons this season. I wish I had space for this, and you know, hopefully in the future I will branch out into growing fruits and melons and watermelons. That would be amazing. I probably will not be growing these, but I just wanted to share because I was really excited to see these come through in the seed swap. Alright, so that is everything that I am planting out for spring 2021. Here in zone 9B, spring and summer kind of run into each other, so I plant my tomatoes and they will last pretty much all throughout the season. I usually don't rip them out. There will be certain things that once they grow, they'll be ready to come out after the season is over, and I will need to replace those items in the garden with fall vegetables and some mustard greens and some more salad greens and things of that nature. So this basically covers spring and summer. This is everything that I'm growing, everything that I want to grow, and hopefully will do well and I'll be able to harvest and enjoy the entire season. Thank you so much for watching and for sharing, and if you made it this far in the video, I really appreciate it. I am really excited to start planting my seeds, and if you have anything that you're really excited to start growing, I would love to hear about it so that I can look it up and hopefully incorporate it into my garden in the next coming seasons. Thanks so much. I'll see you in the next video.